You don't need to ask a woman who she has loved, how she was hurt, or who broke her heart. If you're observant enough, you'll find every answer in how she walks into a room, how she falls silent when someone compliments her, or that fleeting sadness in her eyes when you say something that seems harmless. She doesn't talk about her past, because sometimes even she can't name it. But the past is still there. In how she reacts when you show up late, in the forced smile when someone mentions the word family, in how she pulls her hand away when you suddenly become more tender than usual. If you've ever asked yourself, how can I know what she's been through? Then this video is for you. Part 1. Introduction. The common mistake when trying to understand a woman's past. At a small cafe in the middle of Boston's autumn, a young man named Michael asked a question that most men have asked. Have you ever been in love? He didn't know it, but the moment those words left his mouth, an invisible mask had already been worn. Not because the woman sitting across from him, her name was Elise, had something to hide, but because she was protecting herself. You see, women don't just answer questions, they revise. They smooth things out. They turn rough, jagged memories into palatable pictures, not to deceive, but to survive. So when you ask about her ex, you won't get the truth. You'll get the edited version. But there's another way, more delicate, more profound. You don't need to ask. Imagine walking into an old house. No one tells you its history, but you see scratches on the doorframe, a faded photo inside a wooden frame, and the look in the eyes of the person living there when you mention the word breakup. She doesn't tell stories, but her past is still alive. In her voice, in her silences, in the way she watches you when you smile like someone she once knew. You don't need to become a detective. You just need to learn how to observe. Part 2. People don't just talk about their past, they live it. In a small town near Lake Michigan, there's a nurse named Rachel. She always leaves parties early, never drinks more than one glass, never texts after 10 p.m. When someone asks why, she simply smiles and says, "I'm just someone who likes quiet." But those who are truly observant see something different. She doesn't just love silence, she fears the night hours, because that's when he used to lose control. It's not just the past anymore, it's still present, woven into every decision she makes. You see, the past doesn't only live in the stories we tell. It reveals itself in reflexes, in averted eyes, in the silence that follows when you ask her about her family. You don't need to interrogate a woman to know if she's been hurt. You just need to listen, not to what she says, but to what she doesn't even realize she's showing. She might fall silent when you forget a date, but that silence isn't just sadness. It's disappointment accumulated from someone who once made promises and never kept them. You'll see it in how she responds when you compliment her, or when you unexpectedly show her affection. She's not surprised because she's loved. She's surprised because she's gone too long without it. The past doesn't need to be asked, it is expressed. In habits, in silences, in glances that say more than any story ever could. Part 3. How she reacts to attention. In Manhattan, in a bar where soft light glows against red brick walls, she walks in. She's not the most beautiful woman in the room, but no one can take their eyes off her. You might think she's used to attention, but look closer. She doesn't actively seek it, she needs it. She talks about the men who message her like they're medals of honor, about the gym trainer or the waiter yesterday, as if each glance is proof of something that's been missing for a long time. That's not confidence. It's the sign of a heart that once felt invisible. In Oklahoma, I once knew a woman named Tara. Before her divorce, she spent 10 years with a man who never called her by name, just hey or silence. After the breakup, she changed, shorter skirts, more selfies, not because she loved herself more, but because she was trying to remind the world and herself that she still existed. When a woman has been ignored, she learns to survive by being seen. The issue isn't the number of likes, it's the reason behind each one. She posts photos, not to share joy, but to feel validated. She smiles when complimented, but her eyes search to see if you mean it. You're not just observing behavior, you're touching memory. And the real question isn't, does she attract attention? It's, does she need it to feel like she matters? Part 4. When attention becomes medicine, not joy. I once met a woman named Marissa in Sacramento. She was a flight attendant, beautiful, magnetic, always surrounded by admirers from pilots to passengers. But there was something strange. She couldn't stand silence. One day we went for a walk in the park. No one looked her way. No one called out. And I saw her fade. She started mentioning a guy who texted her the night before, then talked about a stranger who had invited her to dinner. Not to share, but as if clinging, as if her very existence depended on being seen. You see, when a woman has been overlooked in childhood or loved someone who never truly saw her, she starts measuring her worth by how many eyes are on her. Not because she's vain, but because deep down she's hungry. Hungry for affirmation. Hungry to feel seen. Hungry to know, I exist and someone notices. That's the fragile line between a woman who enjoys attention and a woman who needs it to not feel empty. For one, a compliment is dessert. For the other, it's oxygen. And the scary truth? If one day you stop giving her that attention, she might seek it elsewhere. Not because she's unfaithful, but because that's how she learned to feel loved. You don't need to ask her about past lovers or abandonment. Just watch how she reacts when the spotlight disappears. And ask yourself, is she seeking admiration or calling out for connection? Part 5. How she talks about other women. In a nail salon in Phoenix, where women often share everything from love stories to cookie recipes, there was a woman named Kayla. She didn't say much about herself, but every time someone mentioned another woman, a co-worker who just got promoted, a friend who got engaged, or even a model in a magazine, Kayla reacted before anyone else could finish. She's just pretending. Look closely. All of it's fake. That kind of woman never keeps a man. She didn't curse, but every word carried an unhealed wound. You see, women don't just speak about others. They reveal themselves through their remarks. When a woman constantly labels others as fake, flirtatious, or suspicious, it often says less about those women and more about her own pain. Maybe she was betrayed by her closest friend. Maybe she loved a man who was drawn to that kind of woman. Or maybe she's so deep in comparison that she no longer believes anyone achieves things honestly. And when she says, I don't get along with women, they exhaust me. Don't mistake that for strength. It might be pain, dressed up as independence. I once wrote a character like that. Her name was Claire, a brilliant lawyer, always distant from other women. Eventually we learn her childhood was full of competition. Her mother always compared her to her sister. Friends had betrayed her. Love was stolen by someone she trusted. So you see, coldness isn't a personality. It's armor forged from memory. A woman at peace within herself has no need to battle everyone around her. Part 6. When the past speaks in moments of conflict. It's not when she laughs, but when you accidentally hurt her, that's when you truly see her. I remember a winter afternoon in Denver. It was cold and bitter. My friend Jacob showed up 15 minutes late to his first date with Ava. He brought flowers, apologized, and thought everything was fine. But Ava went completely silent. No anger, no accusations, just silence, absolute. As if that small delay had awakened something old and familiar, a pain buried beneath a smile. And I knew this wasn't just about being late. You see, the past doesn't knock on the door with words. It walks in through nameless reactions. A woman who was once abandoned won't get angry, she'll retreat. One who's been betrayed won't argue. She'll scan, doubt, and measure every move you make. And sometimes she'll explode, not because of you, but because of what's been bottled up for too long from someone else. If she always shuts down during conflict, it may be because every time she spoke up in the past, someone left. If she overreacts to small things, it might be a lesson from times when her emotions were dismissed. We don't just inherit genes from our family. We inherit survival patterns too. A woman who had to fight to be heard will always be on defense. A woman who was forced into silence will use silence as a weapon. And the saddest thing is this: sometimes you get pulled into a war that isn't yours. You're just an unwilling audience to a past that hasn't yet healed. Part 7. Her romantic past, revealed through the words she doesn't realize she's choosing. In Portland, on a rainy afternoon, Daniel and a girl named Lily sat in a small bakery by the street. They hadn't known each other long. Their conversation drifted like autumn wind, until Lily chuckled softly and said, "This place used to be our favorite sushi spot, but it's under new owners now." Just one word, our. No need to ask, no investigation required. That one word carried the trace of someone who used to be there. When you know how to observe, you'll see. Women don't retell their old love stories with dates and timelines. They tell them through pronouns. "We used to go hiking here. After that time I had to learn to live alone." Do you hear it? No names, no details. But there's a time, a feeling, and a transformation. I once met a woman, her name was Denise, in Vermont. She never talked about an ex, but every time someone mentioned Thanksgiving, her eyes drifted away. It wasn't until I casually said, "That holiday tends to bring people together," that she smiled softly. Not everyone has someone to come back to. A woman who has loved deeply doesn't need to say much. Just watch how she hesitates when talking about the past, how she avoids specific time frames as if erasing a part of her life. One more thing, if she often says phrases like, "everything fell apart," or "I had to rebuild myself from scratch," don't rush to ask, "What happened?" Just understand. That was once the eye of the storm. And now she's only showing you the sky after she cleaned up the wreckage. Let her tell the story when she's ready. Until then, pay attention to the silent fragments, because sometimes silence is the most honest confession. Part 8. How she talks about men is how she was hurt by them. I once knew a woman named Julia who lived in a peaceful countryside near Asheville, North Carolina. She was the kind of woman who could make you smile just by pouring tea and asking how your day was. But every time the conversation shifted to the men in her life, not necessarily exes, even fictional characters or social commentary, her eyes would change. "Men, they're always the same." That line came out like a crease worn into the soul, a kind of sadness so old it had become mistaken for truth. You see, a woman might laugh with you, kiss you, sleep beside you, but if deep down she still believes men aren't trustworthy, then love between you will always feel like a house built on thin ice. The jokes might sound harmless. You'll leave too, just like the others. Men only love you in the beginning. I've never met a man who really keeps his word. But beneath those lines is a history, an absent father, a cheating boyfriend, someone who once made a promise, then left at the worst possible moment. You're not hearing opinions, you're hearing history. And what you must understand is this: she's not talking about you, she's talking about the cracks she still carries. But if you're not careful, you'll walk into a house full of broken glass, cut yourself on what you never caused, and not know why. Not because she doesn't love you, but because she still can't believe that a man can be safe. And if she truly believes every man leaves, sooner or later she'll be the one who leaves first, just to avoid hurting later. Part 9. What she says about her family is a mirror reflecting how she learned to love. In a peaceful suburb near Nashville, under the slanting glow of a spring sunset, I sat with a woman named Erin. She had just described her mother's birthday party. Homemade apple pie, old country music playing softly in the kitchen. It all sounded like something from an old song. Until I asked, "And your father?" She smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. Just a simple shrug and the words, "He was around when needed." And I knew, right there, was a hollow space she had learned to paint over with indifference. You see, when a woman talks about her father, you don't need the full story. You just need to listen to her tone. Is it warm, distant, bitter, or simply empty? The way she sees her father is the first way she learned to see men. If she had to earn his love, she'll try twice as hard in love. If she was neglected, she'll learn to love without ever asking for anything. If his affection was on and off, she'll see emotional coldness as normal. I once knew a woman named Rachel. She worked at an art center in Austin. She loved deeply, but always felt she had to earn it. She gave gifts, cooked, sacrificed. Not because she enjoyed it, but because to her, love had to be deserved. She once told me, "My dad only praised me when I got an A or won something." And from then on, she grew up with a silent belief. I only deserve love when I'm perfect. You don't have to ask, "What was your childhood like?" Just observe how she reacts to the smallest things. What does she say when Thanksgiving is mentioned? When someone talks about family gatherings, does she light up or shrink back? Does she speak of her mother like a best friend or like a lesson never quite learned? Because the truth is, people don't grow up and leave their families behind. Family stays with them, like background music they've heard so long, they forget it's still playing. But that music still shapes everything. Part 10. What moves her and what leaves her untouched? At an old movie theater in Savannah, Georgia, where the screen still flickers slightly when the projector rolls, I once witnessed something small but unforgettable. The film that night told the story of a girl abandoned by her mother and raised in the cold hands of a strict grandmother. When the final scene came, the girl stood up, forgave, and walked forward. The audience cried. But the woman sitting in row 3 didn't blink. No gasp, no hand clasped, just emptiness, as if she couldn't or didn't dare let herself feel. You see, the things that stir a woman, or don't, say far more than any words ever could. If a song about betrayal makes her tear up after just a few notes, trust that this is a place where something once bled. If a careless comment leaves her unusually quiet, that's not oversensitivity. That's memory coming back to life. I once knew a nurse named Ellie in Minnesota. She could be strong through a 12-hour shift, handling emergencies without flinching. But one day during lunch, an old song played in the cafe. The lyrics told of a father who never returned from war. She didn't say a word. She just put her spoon down and quietly walked out. You can't ask her, "What makes you emotional?" She won't have an answer. But you can see it. In her eyes, in small gestures, in the way she avoids a certain song, a memory, or a sentence that seems harmless. And sometimes scarier than tears is detachment. When a woman no longer feels moved by things that should touch her heart, it's not because she's strong. It's because she's built walls too high, too thick, just to avoid feeling anything at all. Coldness isn't instinct. It's armor, forged through years of pain. Part 11. Listening with your eyes. The subtle art of observation over interrogation. At a small cafe in the Seattle area, where old jazz records still play on rainy afternoons, I once witnessed something more beautiful than a love confession. A man named Nate and his girlfriend Harper were sitting together. They weren't talking much. But when he accidentally ordered the wrong drink for her, adding sugar to her black coffee, I saw Harper pause slightly. No anger, no complaint, just a flicker of disappointment passing by like a late autumn breeze. And Nate noticed. Without saying a word, he swapped cups with her. No explanation needed. That was the kind of sensitivity no question can achieve. You see, wise men don't interrogate the past. They read it, through behavior, through silence, through the way she pulls her hand away when you're unexpectedly gentle, through the light in her eyes, not when you call her beautiful, but when you remember something small she loves. When you observe long enough, you begin to notice she doesn't trust you because you're kind, but because you're consistent. She doesn't talk about betrayal, but always checks your words silently. She doesn't ask, "Do you love me?" She watches how you stay when she says nothing. Interrogation brings you edited stories. Observation brings you what she hasn't had time to hide. So if you're the kind of man who knows when to stay silent, who's present enough to sense the shift in her energy, who's calm enough not to fix first, but to understand, then you're not just dating. You're seeing the real woman within her, the one who's still trying to heal, who's learning to trust again, who's daring just once more not to run away. And the clarity you gain from that kind of seeing isn't just about understanding her, it's about understanding yourself. Do you have what it takes to love someone who's been broken and still choose to stay? Part 12. Closing. When you stop listening to words and start seeing the person. I once met an old man in Charleston, widowed for over 30 years, living alone in a wooden house by the river. When I asked, "How did you know she was the one?" He didn't talk about beauty or success or what she used to say. He just smiled and answered, "She had a way of being silent that made my heart feel calm." He didn't listen to what she said. He saw the way she washed dishes after an argument, the way she placed a hand on his shoulder when he was quiet too long, the way she sat by the window at day's end, needing nothing but his presence. That's what most men miss. They're too busy asking, too busy trying to know more, while the real answers lie in the smallest, most consistent things. Now you know. You know that wounds aren't always spoken aloud. They live in the eyes, in the silence between two stories, in how a woman reacts when you're late or when you're unexpectedly kinder than she's used to. And if you're sensitive enough to notice that, you don't just save yourself from heartbreak. You get a chance to become the kind of man who doesn't walk away from someone else's scars. So stop asking, "What has she been through?" and start asking yourself, "Am I patient enough to see her, truly, even when she's not ready to tell?" Because truth always shows up, not in interrogation, but in the way she laughs, then dims when you turn away, in her hesitation around kindness as if waiting for you to take it back, in the trust she doesn't know how to give, but still wants to try. And if you can see that, you're not just seeing her. You've stepped into something deeper than love, a kind of knowing that frees you from illusions. Closing message. If any part of this video made you pause and think of someone, write it below. Maybe it's someone you once loved, or maybe it's the version of yourself from long ago. And if you want to keep exploring how to understand women, not through their words, but through the emotions they've never dared to speak, hit subscribe.